Welcome to this demo for an MCP server for AWS Cost Explorer. In this demo, we will explore how to use AWS Cost Explorer MCP server in Claude Desktop to understand the spend across my AWS account. Now, this is an open source repository. All the code for this and instructions on how to integrate it with Claude Desktop, or for that matter, any other MCP client, is provided over here in this repository. And I can ask it some of these usual but very important questions about my AWS spend without having to uh, be on the AWS console. Now, just as a background, Anthropic provided the Model Context Protocol, which is a new standard for connecting AI assistant to systems where data of interests may live. So we'll be using this protocol to make an MCP server that has been integrated with the Claude Desktop. Again, all instructions for integrating this are included in this repository, and all code for this is open source. So with that, let's get started. So I am going to start my Claude Desktop over here. So as the Claude Desktop loads, you will see that it will start the MCP server and load the tools provided by the MCP server. So in a matter of few seconds, we should see an icon over here which says that this Claude Desktop server now has access to these tools, which are provided by the MCP server. So this is a tool to get detailed breakdown by day. This is a tool to get my last EC2 spend. So let's see if we can ask ask Claude some of the questions for which it will need to use those tools. So let's say if I ask it what were the AWS services where I spend most in the last few days. So let's say this is a simple question, that I would like to get answered. And normally I would have had to go to the AWS Cost Explorer console to get this answer. So now it's saying, hey, to answer this question, I'll need to invoke this tool. Do I have permissions to do that? So I'll say allow for this chat. And my last few days were phrased, it interpreted it to be 7 days, which is reasonable. So now it's getting data using the tool. And once it has the data, it will provide some interpretation of the data that we see being printed out. So it says in the last few days, these were your significant expenses. So Amazon EC2, some other EC2, AWS S3, and Amazon SageMaker. And then it says on March 3, you spent like $5.50. March 7th, you spent $1.1, so on and so forth. And I can say, well, this is very useful. This is kind of what I wanted to understand, but then maybe it would be nice to see a markdown table of the daily spend for each service. So if I want, a more tabular sort of output, which I may like. So now it's going to, generate a markdown table with the daily spend. So same, we are able to see that on March 3rd, it spent it is pointing out to the $5.50 spend on EC2 compute. And so the same data now provided in a tabular format. And I can actually go and check this AWS account to see that this data is actually correct. So if I go here, say March 7 days, and I can see here. So the $5.50, 5.51 on March 3rd, and then there is another $1.1 on March 7th, which is kind of what this table is also saying. So it was able to get this data without me going to the Cost Explorer and also provide me an interpretation. Now, another useful thing, if I go back to this data and actually increase the time period here to say 3 months. Now here, when I increase the time period here to say 3 months, I am seeing, yeah, there was some like spikes. There were some incidents from between December 10th, 11th, and 12th where I, at least in the context of this account, spent a lot of money. And normally this is the kind of information that I would like to know. But let's say I didn't know about this, and I'm just coming in cold here, and I say, what are the incidents in the last few months regarding my AWS spend that I should pay attention to? So the idea here is that it should call that tool again, understand all that data and figure out. So we see that it's now going to call this last few months as 90 days. So it's going to now figure out, hopefully, that there were some incidents on December 10th, 11th, 12th, and provide me some interpretation for that. Let's see what it does. So usually this is the kind of thing that one would have to go to the Cost Explorer console, dig in through a bunch of charts and figure this out. But let's say, so yeah, so it says, yes, there were some incidents related to SageMaker high cost on December 10th to 12th, exceptional spike in SageMaker on for $20.79 on December 12th, $51.10 on December 11th, and so on and so forth. And then it goes ahead and provides me some recommendation as well. I would say, can you provide this in the form of a nice markdown report with tables and uh, bullet points, right? So just something that I can just go ahead and email somebody. And another thing that I would want to know once it provides me this data is that, well, you are telling me there was this SageMaker spend for $51 on December 11th. Well, why was it, right? What was the instance type that I was using? What service within SageMaker that I was using? So as it prints that, I can see that it has actually already provided me that information in this nicely formatted report that it is generating at the moment. So it understood all that spend and it is providing me not just incidents that I should have paid attention to, but also like recommendations and conclusions over here. So let's go back and look at that over here. So, it says notable incident between December 2024 to March 2025. SageMaker spent, these were sort of the high cost events. So it captures the December 10th to 12th incident over here. And furthermore, it is able to capture that incident was due to the MLG5 X-Large instance, specifically for hosting. And if we go back and and if you were looking at the Cost Explorer for this thing, normally I would have added a breakdown here for instance type. And my assumption is that if all this data is being correctly interpreted, yep, so we will see that this is the right MLG5 X large instance, which is being captured in that report. So it already understood all that and captured that in its interpretation over here. And then further provide some commentary on like, yeah, there was some EC2 compute spike due to potential holiday period, some use for Bedrock, and then it captures another incident where, not too high, but in the context of my overall usage, this was also an anomaly where, notebook instances were being used, and then it provides me, well, this is your Bedrock usage example and analysis and trends over here. S3 usage analysis and trends over here. So now this account doesn't really have that much spend, but the idea is that if this was a actual account with a lot of spend, all this information would have been extremely valuable. And then not only that, it then furthermore provides me, recommendation actions on what could I do to avoid this kind of high spend. So this is very useful. This is kind of stuff that if I were to do it programmatically or even manually through the Cost Explorer, it would have taken me a lot of time. But using this tool without having to leave my Claude desktop, I'm able to get all this information, and I can even maybe download this report, email it to a team, and say, well, why don't you? We should look at this and see if we can mitigate such incidents in the future. So again, a very simple MCP server, but nonetheless a very powerful example of what we can do with the model context protocol. And again, this is a open source repository. All the code is over here. And if we look at the server.py, which actually contains the code, so you'll see it's actually pretty simple code over here. We have two tools. Get EC2 spend last day. This is not something that we used in the example that I was showing you, but that code is here. And then this was the tool that was being used, get service spend in the last 30 days. So, this is using the Boto3 client for Cost Explorer to get all of this data. And you'll see that at the end, basically it is printing out all of this information in a string, which gets outputted. And at the end, that information is And at the end, that information is provided via the standard output to the Claude desktop. So this is how it works. And I would point out that actually all the code for this repository, probably maybe like 95% of the code, if not more, um, has been written using Claude 3.7 Sonnet. So all this code that you saw in server.py, all that code was actually written by Claude 3.7 Sonnet with me providing instructions that, hey, I want to use the Bot2.3 Cost Explorer API to get spend by region, by day, by service, by instance types, and then basically I wrap that code into the MCP tool. So some part I had to code, but the crux of this, like the core of all this implementation, was all generated by Claude itself, and I tweaked it here and there as per my requirements. But mostly this code was written by Claude, and once this code was there, I provided the this repository to Claude using git ingest and said, well, generate me a README file. So this README file also, for the most part, again, 90-95% of this README file was written by Claude 3.7. And I just checked it in the repository. So like overall, I would say like more than 90-95% of the code that you see in this repository is written using Claude 3.7 itself. So pretty cool implementation of MCP and using Claude as a coding assistant for a simple example over here. Hope you find this useful.